Welcome to the Dirty Verdict Podcast, where your host, trial lawyer Kyle Herbert and mediator Peter Taaffe break down Texas legal news, lawsuits, and verdicts. And now, here's Kyle and Peter.
Coming back to another edition of the Dirty Verdict Podcast. This is Peter Taaffe with Kyle Herbert.
Hey, Pete.
And Kyle, we're joined again by some special guests. We're going to talk a little bit with Maureen Farrell.
We've got Maureen Farrell, and still with us is Kieran McAlpine to offer his silver-tongued opinions about a variety of issues. But before we get into that, we are going to chat with Maureen, your firm is Muery and Farrell, Muery.
That's correct.
Ferrel?
No.
Farrell.
Correct.
Holy cow. I got it on the second try. I'm super impressed. Offices in Houston and Austin?
Austin, yep.
Any other locations?
We have a little office in Del Rio.
Del Rio.
Yeah.
That is Spanish for the Rio.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
I love it down there.
Tell us, Maureen, you are from the mean streets of St. Louis, Missouri.
I am indeed.
Tell me about your childhood in Missouri.
Go Cards. And I...
Go Cards?
Go Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Go Cards.
And when I grew up, they were in the same competitive division as the Astros. So I grew up really hating the Astros.
Oh, man.
But that's not a problem for me anymore.
Who were some of the Cardinals that, during your time of being a big fan?
Ozzie Smith.
Oh.
Yeah, that's literally the only Cardinal I know.
Well, there was Lonnie Smith as well.
And there was a little bit later, Mark McGuire, who broke the home run record when I was in college.
He's a poor man's Sammy Sosa.
True.
Yeah, I guess that's probably right. Willie McGee. Anyway. So, yeah, like all people from St. Louis, I'm crazy about St. Louis, and I'm crazy about the St. Louis Cardinals, and I'm really boring on the topic of St. Louis. Love the Arch. Think it's beautiful. You know? And that's what people from St. Louis are like. Toasted ravioli, the Arch.
Toasted ravioli and the Arch. Tell me, we often hear this as a real cultural fight. What is St. Louis barbecue about? Because I've had Kansas City barbecue. I've had North Carolina barbecue. I've had all kinds of barbecue, and I have a specific opinion about it. But tell us about St. Louis barbecue, if you can.
I love St. Louis so much, but I think that it is so vastly inferior to Texas and Kansas City barbecue that it's probably not worth commenting.
That's painfully honest. I appreciate that.
You got to get that pork steak, though.
That's true.
I know.
What is pork steak? Is that like a pork chop?
It's a cut. That's so true, Kieran. You're speaking truth. It's a cut of the pork that has more fat in it.
It's the pork shoulder. It's like you take a pork butt and then you cut it up into steaks and then you cook it, like slow cook it.
But it's marbled.
Yeah.
And it's what you do on the barbecue, and it's delicious.
And that's the jam in St. Louis.
It is.
I'm assuming you've been just across the river, across the state, I guess, and had burnt ends in Kansas City.
Yes.
That's legit.
That is legit. But, I have lived in Texas now for about 12 years, and I love my Texas barbecue.
I don't discriminate generally against barbecue.
Wow.
I will eat barbecue from almost anywhere. I do have a few favorites and a few low notes, St. Louis probably being one of them.
But St. Louis is really stand out at other things. So,
tell me, where'd you go to school?
Where'd I go to high school?
No.
I went to St. Louis University undergrad.
Okay.
Which is a Jesuit school. And I majored in philosophy and French. Useful.
I got to say, between the two of you, I've got a real Hobson's choice.
That's so good. I was trying to think about philosophy.
Of who to ask philosophy questions, because you're both, philosophy.
I learned about Hobson's choice from Emotion, followed by Nick Zito, where he used that reference, if you know who I'm talking about.
I 100% know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And Nick Zito is a
friend of the podcast.
Interestingly enough, Nick is a frequent opponent, and I actually like Nick Zito. Okay, me and him go to some Longhorn games a couple times a year.
Nice.
I got mostly nothing but good things to say about Nick Zito.
I agree.
He's got some flavor for real.
He does have some flavor.
Yeah.
And ever since that Krauthammer guy that used to be on CNN died, I think the two of them are complete doppelgangers. And so I'm not. I've never seen the two of them in the same place at the same time. But that's neither here nor there.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
Not at all. So philosophy degree, University of St. Louis, and then where did life take young Maureen Farrell?
I moved to London, England, after I graduated from college.
Fascinating. What were you doing there?
I decided that I wanted to do the English version of a PhD in philosophy. And so
in England, it's called Ye Old PhD.
Ye Old, yep, DPhil.
OLDE PhD.
Yeah.
What were you studying?
So really, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I just wanted to go and live in London for a while. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I'd had a wonderful year in France, my junior year of college. And so I thought, what is a legitimate seeming way for me to move on over to, an interesting place and borrow money to finance my sojourns? So I applied for a graduate program, and I was going to do a PhD or DPhil in Wittgenstein, Ludwig von Wittgenstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I didn't end up doing that.
You guys are making me feel dumb, but that's not hard to do. I mean, that sounds like some pretty serious stuff to study.
Yes, I really barely remember anything about it now. I think he has a famous book about, he's kind of a linguistic philosopher, and I think he has a book called Orange and Yellow or something, Orange and Blue. I barely remember it.
Wow. All right. We're going to save that for a different podcast.
Absolutely.
How long did you stay in England? Did you get your law degree there? Did you come back here? Fill in some blanks.
Yeah. So, I think like a lot of people, I did have an unusual journey into the law. So I when I first moved to London, I needed a job. I needed a summer job. And I got a little summer job at an oil and gas magazine called The Petroleum Economist.
Did you consider a job as a known soccer hooligan?
I did that on the weekends.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. We're big Arsenal fans in my house. So
wow.
It's a big London team. So I got a summer job at The Petroleum Economist, and I was enjoying very much getting a paycheck for the very first time in my life, like a real paycheck. I always did, worked after school. I was waitress and everything, but I liked having a real job. And so when the summer was over and it was time for me to start that DPhil at King's College, London, I decided not to do that. I decided to stay on at Petroleum Economist. I did a lot of things for them. I wrote for the magazine. I did some conference organizing. I learned a lot about oil and gas. I actually came to Houston while I was working there. It was the very first time I'd ever taken a business class flight.
Wow.
Yeah. And we came here and we met up with a lady who was a kind of a grande dame of the oil families here in Houston. She picked us up from the airport, and I'm not kidding you, a brown stretch limo. And this is in the 2000 somethings.
Can you say who it was?
I can't remember her name. I think she was a member of the Hunt family.
Okay.
And
to be fair,
she was
a brown stretch limo. That's a custom job. You don't just, this working for Daspit.
It was crazy.
You don't just pick up a brown stretch limo.
It was crazy.
Somebody painted that for you.
And I thought it was so cool. I did. I was unabashedly like, check me out, Houston, my brown limo. And we had all kinds of really weird meetings. We met with Roy Huffington Sr., who was an amazingly interesting person to talk to. Mm-hmm. He was pretty elderly at the time. And we met with, we went to weird things like consulates and stuff.
Okay.
So anyway, I worked for Petroleum Economist for a few years and then decided I wanted to go to law school. And in England, the system's a little bit different. So you apply for a training contract at a law firm before you apply to law school. So I applied to some large law firms in London, and I was offered a job at a firm called Herbert Smith.
Ooh, I like that name.
They're now known as Herbert Smith Freehills. And
sounds respectable.
They are respectable. Well, I don't know if they're respectable.
But they sound respectable.
Yeah. And so the cool thing is then the law firm pays for law school. So they paid for law school and they paid me a nice living stipend. And then I owed them 2 years as a trainee solicitor after I finished. And so I qualified as a solicitor of England and Wales. And I was a banking lawyer, a transactional banking lawyer for 5 years for a very large firm. It's, 1,500 associates, 250 partners.
Did they make you wear one of those weird white curly wigs?
Make you wear? No, we weren't. Solicitors aren't allowed to wear them. It's only barristers that get to wear those. So they still have a distinction between barristers, which are traditionally trial lawyers, and then, transactional lawyers who are not allowed to wear the wigs.
So like what we would do now would be like considered to be which one?
The barristers.
Yeah. So we would be wearing wigs in England.
And that distinction now has been blurred. So Herbert Smith actually has a lot of, trial solicitors. But it used to be that your barristers would do all the courtroom work, and that your solicitors was, the low class paper shifters.
Peter, I'm not sure what the budget is up to, and I don't know if any of the solicitations we've made for corporate sponsorship have worked out. Do we have it in the budget to get a couple of wigs? Maybe 3 or 4, do you know?
Definitely 2. We'll have to maybe get some budget wigs for 3 and 4.
We maybe get a used situation.
Yeah.
How much are they, Maureen?
So here's the thing. It's not just that they're expensive, it's that they're exclusive. So if you go to Lincoln's Inn Fields, where all the big it's in central London, where all the big kind of barrister shops are, where all their offices are, they'll have their fancy like wig and dress, their wig and robe places. And I believe that you are not allowed to buy those things unless you show them your
Maureen, this is America and it's capitalism, and I can buy whatever
I think you
I
can go to Party City and probably get yourself something.
Yeah, I was gonna
possible.
say England's a different place.
Man,
Yeah.
No doubt.
Bunch of euros.
But so I worked there for a while, and then decided to move here with my family. And
did you? Total ignorant on this point. Did you have to go to law school in the United States, or did you just apply for membership? Or I for a long time thought England was just like Vietnam, like there were no laws.
Wow.
Right?
So
they don't have a constitution.
they don't need one.
I don't even know what
That's how civilized it is.
I don't even know what the House of Lords does. I know they have a queen.
Very little.
Right. And there's a giant mace, and there's this. Is it truly a country of laws, or are they making it up as they go along and expecting us to agree with it based on their accent?
They are indeed making it up as they go along, and as they have been since the 9th century. And we have the English to thank for all of our common law traditions. So when I moved here, believe it or not, I didn't have to reattend law school because I had the equivalent of a JD in a common law jurisdiction. And so I had to do a 1-year LLM, which I did at U of H.
Wow.
In international law, which is great. It was really fun. And then I sat the Texas bar and passed it with ease because that's how great English law is.
Can we call you? So we decided we were going to call Keir Angus.
Yeah.
I think him being Scottish makes you're technically her vassal from here on out.
Well, we would highly dispute that. We would not agree.
Trial by combat, I think, coming at the end.
But Scots have been like on the right side of the trial by combat.
No, that's pretty good.
So
I studied abroad at St. Andrews, so
yeah, that's a nice place.
If I go into a pub and have enough drinks, I can.
Were you there when Prince William was there?
I was, in fact, there when William and Kate were there. Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You're definitely
True
coming.
story.
You're definitely coming back.
Yeah. Or we're gonna go out with him.
Yeah.
Maybe hang out with Prince Andrew. So I feel like for the rest of the time, if he's Angus, we'll call you the right gentlewoman from Nigel Wednesday Tabernacle, which I assume is the name of a soccer team somewhere in England.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay.
Nigel Wednesday Tabernacle sounds about right.
Perfect. So
Nice.
you make your way from jolly old England, where Hogwarts is, all the way back to the United States. Tell me about your legal career. What are you doing now? What'd you start out doing? How'd you end up where you're at?
Yeah, so like I said, when I was practicing in London, I was doing transactional work. I was a banking lawyer. I did corporate workouts. I worked for Lehman Brothers as a secondee for a while.
What's a second D?
They hoarded me out to Lehman Brothers in London from my law firm. So
Loaned, you said, right?
So that's
Loan.
what I said.
Did they
Okay.
default?
Yeah.
Mr. Bond, you've been seconded to
So
the FBI.
the law firm continued to pay my wages, but gave me to Lehman Brothers to work for them. But it was a wonderful experience. So
Was it during, like, when things were going?
it was just before. Yeah, it was just before. So I don't know. Maybe there was a tense air about the place.
You didn't tank Lehman Brothers.
I did not.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So then when, my personal life changed, I got married and I had a child and I was working very long hours at Herbert Smith as transactional lawyers that big law firms do.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that we wanted to be able to live on one income. And because I have the benefit of an American passport, my British husband and I were like, let's move back to America where we can make it work on one income instead of, he was working for Morgan Stanley at the time. And we were like, how are we going to be able to afford anything?
Your husband's English?
Yeah.
What? What's his name?
James.
Oh.
What's his middle name?
Thomas. His people are actually from Ireland. Like his mom and dad are Irish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's why we moved. That's why we moved to Houston. It's because we wanted to be able to live on one income. I have 4 children in total, so we had 2 more kids. And so then I had a kind of a transition, like, okay, now what do I want to do? Right? I didn't want to go back and work for big law. I didn't want to do transactional law anymore. And so first I had to sit the Texas bar and I had to do that LLM. So that took a year. And then I started doing some contract work, made some friends with some smart lawyers, including my now partner, Adam Muery. Mm-hmm. And he and I worked a very long breach of fiduciary duty case that had a large international element. And he and I worked on that case together for almost 3 years. I had 2 children while we were doing that case.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then when my kids were really little, I kind of just did that sort of stuff. I had great friends that were lawyers. I would draft stuff for them, and I had a few of my own clients. But then as relatively recently, like probably 4 years ago, it's like, the youngest kid's now 7, and I'm ready to completely dive back in. So I transitioned back to full-time practice. Adam and I started our firm, and now we do mostly plaintiff's personal injury stuff. And that is almost entirely what I do.
So Maureen, you and I met. We were both representing plaintiffs in the same case.
Yes.
And I believe we had a situation where 2 young ladies were involved in a car accident. Might have been more than that. But we got to be friends, I guess, because we were mutually fighting against the same defendant. But I recall that case wrapping up where it was discovered, I think, just before or during mediation that my client had been like not buckled in, or she had some criminal problems.
I remember what it was.
And so, the police came to the scene of this commercial accident, and my client had jumped out of the vehicle and hidden in the trunk. And then when the police got there, I believe she fled the scene on foot or something insane.
The insane thing was like, you're correct. I think she had an outstanding warrant, or she was worried she had an outstanding warrant. So she hid in the trunk. And then at the opportune time, she got up and like kind of hid behind the semi that had hit them and kind of like walked around it so that the police couldn't see her as they were walking around.
Right.
So her name, I don't believe, was on the police report.
Right. And I remember we had mediated this case for like 6 hours, and they were offering my client an amount of money far out of step with someone who hid in the trunk of a wrecked car and then ran away.
We got good money on that case.
And I remember you and I were talking, and I was like, man, I got to take this money. I want to wish you the best of luck because my client is a total crazy person and I got to get out of this thing. I mean, that's about right, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I think we hit it off immediately. And I think we had a good defense, like reasonable defense counsel in that.
Yeah. The case got done without too much fussing and fighting. But it was a really interesting set of facts when we both realized
those girls were funny.
That my client had been hiding in the trunk of a wrecked
Yeah, like, why aren't you on the police report? Well,
I was hiding in the trunk.
Yeah.
as you do.
Like you do.
As you do when you've got a really serious neck injury.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So full disclosure, Maureen and I have worked on a few cases together because we had so much fun working on the first one.
That's right.
Which is not hyperbole. We really did have a great time. And so we found a few cases to work on over the years. And we've got one right now, which is the reason we brought you on the show. Is it okay if we talk about the Waldrop case a little bit?
I'd love to.
So this case is ongoing, so there's a lot that we can't talk about. But this case, I'll set it up, and then you can dive in with some details. This is a case where a young child was bit on the face and mauled by a pit bull at a restaurant. And we've sued the owner of the pit bull. We've sued the person that transported the pit bull to the restaurant. We've sued the restaurant, and we've also sued the doctor who wrote some recommendations about the nature of this dog being fit as a service animal. Is that about right?
That is about right. Yeah.
And the defendants who represent the physician who wrote these letters, they want the case dismissed, saying that it's in its nature, a medical malpractice case and should be dismissed. Is that fair?
Their position, not that it's a medical malpractice case and should be dismissed, but that it is a medical malpractice case, and therefore we were required to file an expert report within 120 days of the answer.
That's Chapter 74, but that's
the favorite chapter of defense.
Everybody's favorite chapter.
Yeah.
But before I turn it over to you,
yes,
I don't want to give away the ending.
Okay.
But so they file this motion saying the case should be dismissed. You oppose it, we oppose it, but mostly you oppose it. And the court goes our way and it gets appealed.
Correct.
And the issue on appeal is, does Chapter 74 apply? Is this essentially a medical malpractice case, right?
Correct.
That's the issue before the court.
Correct.
And I told you I would bet you at least, I don't know if it was $1,000 or $10,000, but I bet you a substantial sum of money that you/we would lose that argument. Fair?
That is fair.
So my level of confidence in our winning this was astoundingly low.
And because of my unusual path to being a litigator here in the great state of Texas, right, I have a pretty decent amount of experience in the law, but am still learning so many things about how things actually work here in personal injury litigation.
Sure.
And so I was like, yeah, we're going to win this, bro.
So
yeah, I was fully confident. I was confident going into the motion to dismiss in the trial court, which we won. And then
don't
don't
give away the ending.
Okay.
But I just want to set this up for the audience, build a little tension.
Okay.
I thought you were off of your noodle and we were 100% going to lose. And with that, I'm going to turn it over for you to tell us the story about this appeal and what it means for law in Texas at this stage.
So what it means for law in Texas in terms of limiting the...
Well, I want you to just tell us what happened, what the fight was about, how it turned out, and then tell us what you think is going to happen going forward, and maybe how you see the landscape of these med mal motions going.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
No.
Okay. No, but so sort of like, so the doctor that had certified the pit bull as a service animal was the one that was asserting Chapter 74?
Yes.
Okay. Because like I can't imagine the restaurant or the pit bull owner or anything like that having any grounds for that, right?
Right. You got it.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so
the doctor was joined because we became aware that he had written a number of notes to the to the other defendant, to the dog owner, who said things like named the dogs by name and talked about the various attributes of these dogs. And this is her doctor.
And not a doctor who, I guess we can say what practice he's in. He's a gynecologist.
Yeah.
Wait, the dog doctor is a gynecologist?
No, but it's not a dog doctor. So
there's no such thing as a dog doctor.
No, but I mean, it's like the dog. Okay,
it was the owner.
I feel like the audience understood me, so continue.
Yeah, the
Angus, release the hounds.
The
Let loose the
owner
dogs of war.
the dog's doctor was her gynecologist, and she, I guess, needed these notes for her apartment, or I don't know, for whatever her purposes were.
He wrote some notes.
Wherever
they ended up, who knows?
Okay.
So she actually allegedly had 6 service animals, 6 service dogs.
More than one is a pit bull.
Yes, and has had prior history with her alleged pit bull service animals biting people.
Not alleged. This is actually proven.
Yes.
So this isn't like military service animals. This is like emotional support animals or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Multiple pit bulls for emotional support.
Yes.
With prior vet histories. In fact, the one before this one had mauled somebody, and the great state of Texas was like, we got to put this dog down. And she was very upset and said, we don't want to I love this dog. It's not the dog's fault. It's my fault. And so they made an arrangement first, the dog whisperer, Caesar Milan.
Mm. Yeah, sure. I know
They
who
made
he
an
is.
arrangement for that dog to go and live with Caesar Milan in California. And the state of Texas said, as long as that dog doesn't come back to Texas, that's fine. We won't execute it. It can go live in California with Caesar Milan. I believe within 3 months of it moving to Caesar Milan, it bit a member of his staff and they put it down.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway, the doctor wrote some notes that talked about
for all
the
you
dogs.
dog lovers out there. It's Maureen at Texan Legal. I'm just kidding.
I love dogs.
I know, I do too. To be fair, there's no such thing as a bad dog.
Agreed.
There's just really bad dog owners.
Really bad dog.
And this is one of them.
Absolutely. She didn't give that dog a chance, That's one of the sad things
Okay.
about it. So anyway,
Yeah.
the doctor wrote some notes that talked about the behaviors of the dogs and named the dogs and said that they were service animals, which were not statements that are really within the normal remit of a gynecologist.
This seems winnable on the appeal, but
Yeah.
Go
well,
ahead.
I was told it was we were never gonna lose that appeal.
Don't
And-
look at me like that with those sad eyes.
Yeah,
do
not
my eyes look sad to you?
Both of you.
My eyes aren't sad.
and look.
You
So
misread me.
I guess this is the broader point.
So let's hear it,
Is
though.
that the definition of a healthcare liability claim under Chapter 74 of the Civil Practice Remedies Code is very broad
Yeah,
in the case
it
law,
is.
right? Like everything is a healthcare liability claim.
Faulty parking brakes, spider bites, like all kinds
Yeah.
of insane stuff has been found by our courts to be essentially the practice of medicine.
Yeah.
Right.
It has mostly to do with the identity of the defendant.
Yes.
Right. If
Right, and
it's-
here we absolutely sued
Yeah.
a doctor.
If you have an MD after your name, you are almost presumed to have immunity, even if it's something fairly far afield.
And there's
from
been
what you do.
there's been some good case law in the past 6 to 7 years, but it doesn't do much to counterweight all of the bad law on that's been around since 2003.
So this is a good one. This is an
Let's hear it.
interesting limitation.
So the defense for the doctor claimed that it was a healthcare liability claim, and that it was part of the provision of medical care to the owner of the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, it isn't. We wouldn't even know what expert to get to opine about whether or not the doctor gave negligent advice about these attributes of a dog, like what a dog can do. Like, this is not normal doctor stuff. And so we argued that it was not a healthcare liability claim. The trial court agreed with us. It was appealed, fully briefed with love. And then, is it too soon now for me to? And then we won. So this was just a couple weeks ago that was it the first Court of Appeal?
Well, it was the first or the 14th. I don't remember.
I think it
which
was the first Court of Appeal handed down its decision and said that the doctor's statements regarding the attributes of the dogs was not a healthcare liability claim. That wasn't given in the course of medical treatment. So I think it's pretty narrow, but I also think that it.
At least it puts some guardrails up.
Yes.
Right? And the court's opinion is interesting, right? They spent a lot of time talking about what's the difference or similarity between a doctor and a script for medication. What's the difference between a doctor and writing notes about a dog? I mean, it's really an entertaining opinion for me to review and incredibly well briefed by
Thank
Maureen.
you.
Yeah.
One of the things that we said, and that I think is true, is that had the doctor limited himself to saying, I believe that this patient has generalized anxiety disorder and could benefit from a comfort animal or a service animal, that
makes sense.
would have been a healthcare liability claim. But that when they go beyond and say the dog is a certified service animal, the dog licks her face when she walks through the door, and that helps to calm her anxiety. I mean, those were statements. Not only that did he not have the experience to make those statements, but that was not part of the provision of medical care.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really outside that doctor's competence to opine about the qualities and characteristics of a dog. Like, that's just not.
And in the event that someone
Score one
out
for
there-
common sense, I guess.
Right. And the crazy thing is you would think that common sense would dictate. And unfortunately, for those of us that are listening that don't practice law, like
Yeah.
the idea,
No, it's the opposite of that.
the idea of common sense in the application of Chapter 74 departed so long ago.
Big time.
By saying anything a doctor does is
Right.
is, what if somebody's in a wreck in the parking lot? Well, that means those are safety standards associated with a maintenance of a hospital. And
Yeah,
so,
I mean, there's that St. Luke's case from, I think it's like 2016,
That's right.
where there's a little bit of like a chip. There's like a 7-part test that you can look at now. So if you slip and fall at the entryway to a hospital on wet floor because there's not a sign, then there's law now that says that that's not a healthcare liability claim. But it's always going to be a fight because the defense lawyer can always bill for it, and they're always going to go for the gotcha law that exists under Chapter 74 because they can say that, because they're not billing. Having worked for a brief period of time in healthcare liability insurance defense, they are not billing top dollar. They are not, because the exposure is so capped. So, they can bill $200 an hour to just roll dice on these silly, flimsy legal motions, and they've gotten a lot of traction with the higher courts.
but to prove a point and take a step back,
Yeah,
what we're talking about is a gynecologist
talking about a dog. Yeah,
writing notes about the personality traits, I
Right.
guess, of a canine,
Right.
and a very good lawyer who I respect, based on pretty good precedent, writes a brief that says, this gynecologist this is medical care. And that's not the lawyer's fault. That's just how nutty Texas jurisprudence has gotten on this
right.
issue.
Yeah, it's not hard to stretch.
Yeah.
And I feel good about it too, because anytime that we can work hard and write our best briefs to try to limit and chip away at that expanse of what a healthcare liability claim is that's good for plaintiffs in general. I hope that we keep the decision that it doesn't, get overturned at a higher court if it is appealed.
Are they gonna?
I don't know.
Not sure.
I hope not.
There was oral argument?
There was not oral argument.
Because to me, just as a passive, objective observer, the idea that the question of what kind of expert would I get? Like, what doctor do I go find? That seems to be a linchpin to me. If I'm just sitting as a judge hearing that, just trying to think through what's fair.
You got to find a canine gynecologist. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, hold on. Let me riff on that for a second, because I totally agree. And we had a trip and fall case at our firm where a lady trips and falls in a foyer in a doctor's office on a rug, and the defendant, lawyers from at the time, Lawrence Thompson, they file a motion to dismiss under Chapter 74 because we didn't do an expert report. And we go have a hearing on this in front of Judge Wilson, who's, I think now he's on the 14th Court of Appeals. But he was a 157th judge in Harris County at the time. And just the argument in front of Judge Wilson at the time was priceless. He was like, so what kind of rug are they, what kind of expert are they supposed to hire under Chapter 74? A rug expert?
Right.
It was just chef's kiss. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
So this case is still pending, still being litigated. So we probably can't make too many guesses about what will happen next. But good job.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed.
Thank you very much. And it was very exciting to get that news and to call you up and be like, "Yo, you owe me $1,000."
Yeah. So
A big high five.
Was there a bet?
There was a wager, and I think I was driving my kids to school at like 7. I think it was before 7:30 in the morning. It was like 7:05, and I got a call on my cell phone that said Maureen Farrell, and I was like, "This is either really bad or good news, but maybe really bad." And then I picked it up, and Maureen was like, "Did you read this?" I was like, "Did I read what?" She was like, "I sent it to you. I emailed it to you."
I was so excited. It was the first thing I saw when I woke up that morning.
And she was so happy. I just assumed that she would be collecting $1,000. But hey, joke's on you. I don't have $1,000. So
That's okay. I'll just come down here and we'll have lunch
Yeah.
until it's all paid off.
That's fair.
Yeah, but
Be sure to check the expense ledger on this file if he ever does pay you.
Yeah. That would violate state bar rules.
Okay.
And I would never do that.
So as I was trying to find it, because I saw this, I didn't realize we were going to talk about it, but I saw that story on one of the legal news sites. So I was Googling it to try to find it, and I found there's several websites that you can just go online and get a letter, like I assume you can get medication. You can get a letter to certify your dog as a service animal, and they advertise it like, oh, you can use it. You can tell your landlord, sorry, I've got a service animal and get out of it, or I can fly, or all these different things. And I'm sure the prices on this are like $99.
So, Pete, I actually enrolled in one of these, and I don't want to give away any trial strategy, but I can't imagine anybody's ever going to listen to this. If this case ever goes to trial, I have a kit for my dog, and the dog's picture is on the little service animal license card, and the dog's name I think is ravenous pit bull owned by negligent owner.
Something like that.
And it's a picture of a picture of a pit bull with its teeth bared and
snarling with blood and drool.
And it says
the scariest looking dog you've
with
ever
a
seen.
finger in its
Cujo,
mouth.
basically.
And it says what is this animal fit to do? And it's eat children. and its name is Cujo, Death Destroyer of Worlds.
Exactly.
Schrodinger's dog. And I spent the $50 and they sent that to me, and that made
and it says certified service animal. Here's your vest. Here's your little card, and it's this dog
and you
Yeah.
can take it on a plane and sit under your lap with children. And
I'm telling you, this is it is an area of law. You know what is crazy is the dog breeder and the dog advocate lobby in Austin is more significant than you would think. A common sense law that says you got to get a note from your vet, they have successfully defeated that many, 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 many times. And so I know that our legislatures in most states don't make a lot of sense or do anything useful, but if they would give a little bit of attention to this issue, because it's scary.
And it's difficult because of the protections under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so people with disabilities have a federal right to have service animals accompany them in any place of public accommodation. And I think that is an important
100%.
Right, yeah.
But let's, any standard whatsoever, if I have to pay money to go get a driver's license, you can afford the $20 to have your vet say, this is not a dog that will mutilate children. You know what I mean? It's also kind of crazy that you need a pit bull.
To me that's the long and short of it is the dog breed, because there's a short list of dog breeds. Anybody that's handled dog bite cases has had
you get a Rottweiler, you get a Doberman, you
Belgian
get a
Malinois,
pit
bull.
They're incredibly
Doberman,
aggressive.
Yeah, exactly.
Or rather, see, I disagree a little bit. I mean, rather that those dogs don't necessarily bite more often, but when they do a lot more damage.
But hold on a second, though. In terms of liability, right? If insurance, buying insurance on dogs, it's just a known fact. I'm not saying all pit bulls are going to attack somebody. What I'm just saying is that as a breed, the American pit bull statistically will be more aggressive at scale
in
right?
defense,
irrespective of any particular dog. Your pit bull might be the sweetest pit bull in the world, and but kind of my point, just in general, getting apart from just the facts of which dogs are aggressive and that would be on the short list of dogs that are aggressive. I just think that there's a lot of cultural cachet, it's very popular to have those kind of dogs.
I think that
I grew up with poodles, so I mean,
Angus, settle down.
hypoallergenic poodles. Yes,
I tend to agree. I mean, these dogs, like I said, in the right environment with the right owner, are fine.
I think that,
but
I'll make two observations. First, I am not sure that. So I think that pit bulls and Rottweilers account for something like 85% of all hospitalizations from dog bites.
Yeah,
and that is not necessarily because they bite more often, but when they do a lot more damage.
Yeah.
Which should still disqualify them.
Absolutely, right? I think that also pit bulls, generally speaking, are they're personal protection dogs. They're pretty attached to their person.
Yeah.
And that when you bring a dog like that into a busy, crowded restaurant where it's stressed,
totally,
and you put a 3-year-old in front of it.
That's what I mean. In the right
it's
environment.
sensory overload.
Yeah.
It was a very unfair thing to do to that dog, to put that dog in the environment. It was terrible for our client. It resulted in the dog being put down.
Yeah.
And so I'm pro dog, including pit bulls, right? But, you have to be a responsible dog owner. And you also have to, I would say, be a responsible doctor and proprietor of a restaurant. And, when when the answer is that animal was wearing a service vest.
Yeah.
For me,
that you can buy literally for $20 online is
what if
nuts.
somebody walked in with a tiger in a
But
service
the thing that's
vest or
interesting
a
to me,
Komodo dragon?
Komodo dragon.
By the way, hold on. As a subtle aside, and I know Angus agrees with me here. If you can source a Komodo dragon in Houston,
We need one for the zoo, right?
like you got to tell us. Like I will. Yeah, we will.
You'll pay the
Fred-
$99.
The
Peter,
Canada
I
pod,
think
Komodo
that's
dragon.
the dark web, right?
Yeah, but hold on a second.
No, Peter. I don't know what the budget is for wigs, but whatever it was, like we could spend that on Komodo dragons.
Sounds like there's already $1,000 out of you. On the
Yeah,
bill.
all right. We got a head start.
Yeah.
So
What's
you
funny
want
though,
you want one for the zoo since the other one
No,
passed
no,
away.
no, I want for my office.
to make a serious point, just very briefly, would be just that people shouldn't have pit bulls as emotional support dogs if under the ADA they're going to be able to go into any area of public accommodation, because that's just that particular kind of breed is not.
It's dangerous.
I just have a problem with that in general. Like maybe it's not like legally. I just have a problem with people using pit bulls as emotional support. Like
I don't think they're well suited to that.
I don't
kind of
think-
work.
yeah, I don't
Can
think
I say
it's-
that they're not well suited to that sort of work. And so
Yeah,
when
true.
somebody comes in with an animal like that in a service vest, the question that we will ultimately probably bring to a jury is, what does a reasonable establishment do?
Yeah. So what? Kind of circling up because we're
Yeah.
Yep.
dark.
So as far as the case is concerned, aside from this doctor, are there any other defendants in the case?
The owner of the dog, her friend, or we're not sure what the relationship is. She was there with somebody else who drove the dog and her, and then helped them, I guess, flee the scene. And then the restaurant where the dog mauling occurred, because we think that the restaurant has a responsibility to segregate danger, to protect its customers from dangerous situations, to protect invitees from dangerous situations. And so, yeah, the owner of the restaurant's still in, the owner of the dog's still in, and then the friend who transported this dangerous situation onto that premises.
And the case has been stayed while you're
Correct.
Chapter 94 thing. So now I guess it's still in an interim period where they can ask for a en banc.
Well, I mean, I think this is in a position they could appeal it to the Supreme Court, it's not been made clear to us what their next steps are. But
Okay.
we'll see.
So, but the idea is whatever happens with that, it'll come back and either they'll stay in the case or they won't, but you'll still have these other three
Oh, yeah.
defendants.
Yeah, the other three have no way. Well, I mean, they could file motions for summary judgment, but
probably will, because that's par for the course of that kind of case, right?
I expect a well-argued motion for summary judgment from the restaurant.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean, you got to think about it from like defense lawyer standpoint, right? They can just free roll, like they can bill $200 an hour, $300 an hour to roll the dice.
They
on.
will certainly file a motion for summary judgment.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is the appeal from the doctor came so early in the process that very few facts have been developed.
Yeah, that sucks.
As to the restaurant, but we're in a position to do that now, so we'll begin.
And
that
we're
process.
excited. We're going to have fun doing it.
Man, some of these depots seem like layups, but we'll see. I'm asking Maureen to let me take some of these depots because she's kind of she's the partner on the file. I'm the lowly associate, but I've taken one or two good depots in the past, and I'm just hoping for an opportunity to prove myself.
All right. Well, very good with that. Kyle, I have full faith that you'll do it, and we'll make you a partner someday.
Well, somehow, someday, against all odds. Maureen, thanks for that update. That's a super interesting case. And,
Pleasure.
Super interesting background too.
Yeah.
Our first barrister?
I'm a lowly solicitor.
Solicitor, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get a barrister on here. Wig. Can they wear
I
their
know some.
wigs outside of court, or is it purely?
I think they can, but discretion's the better part of valor.
You can only wear them.
It's embarrassing, right?
You can only-
No, I don't think so. I'd wear it out
yeah.
down Richmond here.
I'm totally getting you a wig.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, you can do them. You can wear them in Texas.
This podcast has really gone to the dogs. Let's wrap this
Ha
segment
ha
up.
ha.
All right. Well, thanks to our guests, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Perfect.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us this week at the Dirty Verdict Podcast. For links to some of the stories discussed today, please visit our website, www.dirtyverdict.com. If you have obtained a recent verdict and want us to discuss it, please email details on the verdict to us. Also, please follow us wherever you get your podcasts.